Some stories are so ridiculous you think, no way that happened. This is one of those. Because it did not happen. It's a novel about a vampire, and a dude, and a girl, and people, probably. This is the story of Dracula, Stoker's 1897 masterpiece, the Victorian horror that changed the landscape of literature forever. And you gonna hear me talk about it, because if you don't, this whole intro become incredibly awkward, and I'll have wasted 5 hours writing this funny hook, so have some shame. And yeah, spoiler alert, of course. Don't want you all being spoiled around here, you know? Dracula invites readers into a dark Victorian world where science and superstitions collide, like a psychic and a data analysis meet on a blind date. The novel promises a gripping fight against an ancient evil, highlighting the vulnerability and courage of its human characters, who must navigate fear, deception, and the unknown to save themselves and those they love from the blood-sucking monster. And as you know, every great story starts with Let's start by talking about the star of the story. Meet Count Dracula, the original bad boy of Gothic fiction. You know that guy who refused to meet your friends, hates sunlight, and get weirdly possessive? Yeah, imagine that, but with fangs. However, Stoker's creation is a little bit complex than most vampires in pop culture. According to experts on the internet, Dracula represents the parasitic relationship between the upper class and the working poor, which checks out. He's a centuries-old landlord with fangs, draining tenants dry to pay for his immortality plan. And when he leaves his ancestral debt, his power weakened, like a rich guy who can't function without his personal chef and important mineral water. It's a brilliant little nod to the old European nobility, slowly becoming irrelevant in the bright, fluorescent light of modernization. Okay, real talk. The human characters aren't exactly the most thrilling thing in this story. They're mostly just scream a lot. I mean, we're all here for Dracula and his charming blood-sucking. But for the sake of following the plot and not completely losing you, let me introduce these losers quickly. First, you have Jonathan Harker, the human equivalent of a wet paper tower. He's a lawyer who got invited by a count for house lawyering thingy. This guy walks into Dracula domain like he's expecting room services in a Gothic castle that basically had vampire written all over it, and then spent half the time whining about being trapped. Can you believe this guy? Poor Count Dracula. He just wanted to invade England and spread his curse, but now he got a full-time drama queen stuck in his guest room. The other less useless human is Mina Murray, Jonathan's fiancée. She described in the novel to have a man's brain, which is code for she's smart, because only men can be smart. But don't worry, the book quickly reassures us that she still fully fulfills her domestic duty, meaning she can solve a supernatural murder mystery, but only after she irons Jonathan's shirt. After making sure she baked the bread for the men, she spent most of the novel as the Google Calendar of the team, keep the group on track, takes detailed notes, and basically project manage the vampire's hunt. What else? Yes, Lucy Westenra, the human decorative billow. She's the team mutual friend and Mina's PFF, whose main contributions are looking pretty and bragging about having 3 suitors in a single day. Well, she had to pick one of them because apparently polygamy wasn't a thing in 1897 Europe. Yeah, that's it about her. The last annoying character is this dude, Professor Van Helsing. This guy, basically a doctor, professor, lawyer, philosopher, scientist, and metaphysician, all rolled into one. Yeah, Do you know that guy who Googles everything and suddenly think they know way more than they actually do? Yeah, he's that. But we are not done. He is best known as a classic vampire slayer and Dracula's arch nemesis. And get this, he's also considered the very first parapsychologist. Satan help us. We get it, he's a nerd. Oh, and he also have a dead son and a crazy wife, whom he hates because he is Catholic. Wait, no, that doesn't sound right. I don't know, I zoned out by that time. Are you bored yet? Well, sorry about that. Humans, you know, and no offense to you. But now we are ready for the. The story starts when Jonathan meets Count Dracula. Dracula says, "Don't go into that one room." Jonathan say, "Got it." Jonathan immediately go into that room. Now we have a plot. Turns out that room hold all the weird vampire stuff. Creepy coffins, bats flapping around, and dust. A lot of dust. Actually, it was mostly dust. Jonathan quickly realized he's basically a permanent guest in Dracula's Gothic Airbnb, which is sucks because there's no Wi-Fi, right? And the landlord keep crawling the walls and occasionally try to bite his neck, so that's a problem too. Meanwhile, back in England, Jonathan's fiancée, Saint Mina, and her obnoxious bestie Lucy are living the Victorian dreams of wearing tight corsets and throwing wild tea parties. Lucy were like, "Oh my god, can you believe it? There were 3 suitors come to me in the same day." And Mina was like, "My child, what a blessing from the heavens above. The Lord must have placed a grand land of roses on your brow to draw such devotion. Truly, your heart is a shining chalice overflowing with the wind of love." And Lucy was like, well, honestly, I have chosen only one, like God intended, mostly because he's the hottest between them. His name is Arthur." And Mina was like, "A wise choice, for surely the heavens have not only granted you suitors, but also blessed you with divine taste. May your wedding feast be so grand it causes angels to reconsider their vows." And then Lucy was like, "Sure, hope nothing comes and ruin my plan after the marriage." And they both let out a perfectly prime and proper Victorian laugh, very tee, but with a hint of lady elegance. Back at the castle, Jonathan finally decides enough is enough. No Wi-Fi, no room service. It's time to make a break for it. He sneaks around the creepy castle, dodging bats, weird noises, and Dracula's creepy minions. And after a few tense moments where he probably questions every life choice that led him here, Jonathan manages to escape by climbing out of a window. He finally stumbled back to England, disheveled, exhausted, and ready to deliver the ultimate "you wouldn't believe what happened" story. He reunited with his fiancée. Mina, of course, is the picture of saintly, patient, and Victorian virtue. Listened carefully as Jonathan spilled the tea about his nightmare in Transylvania. Meanwhile, Lucy was in her bedroom one night doing something, probably writing love letters to the 3 different suitors. That's There was a tap at the glass. And no, it's not the wind, it's Dracula. And let's just say he's not here to borrow sugar. He was here to borrow something sweeter, her blood. Yes, Dracula is finally in town and has started his British blood-sucking tour, and she was his first helpless, annoying victim of many. The next morning, Lucy's skin had gone from English rose to washed-out bedsheet. She claimed she was just a little tired, but by day 3, she looked like she'd been rehearsing for cameo in The Walking Dead. Meanwhile, the worried friends and suitors start freaking out, but since it's 1897, their first thought is, must be a delicate female illness. You know, women. They're so fragile, they sometimes faint out of nowhere. Then came Professor Know-It-All, Van Helsing. At first, he acted like your typical logical doctor, poking around, scribbling notes, and trying to diagnose what he politely called a puzzling malaise. But despite his best effort, Lucy's body reached its limits, and her slow death reached its finality as the people clapped from joy. Then, as if being useless in life wasn't enough, she comes back from the dead as the Blue Fair Lady. She started luring children under the cover of night and feed off them while they screamed and cried for mercy. Gotta say, at least she found a way to keep things entertaining. But of course, the useless human couldn't let the fun continue, could they? After hearing about this mysterious lady and some serious head scratching, Helsing, two brain cells finally connected. He dramatically took off his sunglasses, looked at the distance, and declared, "My God, he's back." And by he, of course, he meant Dracula. He immediately throws his doctor kit and goes full vampire hunter mode. Now the useless humans group, Jonathan, Mina, Van Helsing, Lucy Suitors, and few others, form an awkward team of vampire hunters. First order of business? Poke Lucy with a stick. Problem solved. Next. But Dracula, ever the sore loser, isn't done yet. In a spiteful act of revenge, he sinks his teeth into Mina, toning the perfect Victorian power couples drama up to 11. However, Mina, blessed with that infamous man's brain and maybe a dash of power of friendship, resisted the full vampire transformation. It's like she's buffering in the middle of a very creepy download. With Mina's life hanging in the balance, the stakes, pun intended, get higher. Mina's connection to Dracula gives the hunters an edge, but also means time is running out before she becomes the very monster they're trying to kill. So, with Mina caught in this weird psychic vampire Bluetooth situation, thanks to that infamous bite, Van Helsing and the gangs get a pretty sweet advantage. Mina's connection to Dracula let them literally sense where the dude is. It's like having the worst GPS ever, but it works, kind of. The team pack their bag and sets off on a grand Victorian road trip across Europe, Romania, Hungary, and back to Transylvania. Along the way, they endured foggy forests, creepy old villages, suspicious peasants, and enough gloomy castles to give anyone a permanent case of Gothic fatigue. They are racing against time because Dracula's power grows stronger the longer Mina stays connected, and because if she fully turns vampire, well, game's over for the humans. Jonathan, being the wet paper towel he is, was practically on the brink of collapse thanks to his completely inability to handle anything remotely stressful without whining non-stop. Mina kept taking notes like a bored student in a history lecture, and Van Helsing just kept mumbling about ancient evil like it wasn't obvious already. All in all, it was less glamorous vampire hunt, more awkward family road trip from hell. But hey, at least they finally made it to Dracula Castle in Transylvania for the grand finale. Cue the dramatic music, sharpen those stakes, and prepare for some serious face tapping action. Van Helsing, channeling his inner action hero, lays out the plan with all the energy of a man who's just realized his entire career had been leading up to this moment. We kill the monster, or we die trying. Overdramatic, right? The rest said, okay, and they stormed the castle. There's a lot of sneaking around, dark corridors, suspicious shadows, and creepy growls. Then, boom! Dracula appears, smug as ever. Yore yore, he declares. Bakere human sons. There's a flurry of action. Stakes flying, poo 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 poo, holy water splashing, psh, crucifixes waving like desperate dance moves, and more face tapping than you expect in polite Victorian society. Then, in a last desperate move, Dracula tries all his vampire tricks, shape shifting, calling storms, and dramatic monologues, but the humans are relentless. Finally, Jonathan plunged the stake into Dracula's heart. The big moment, Dracula let out a dramatic gasp, more theatrical than scary, before collapsing to dust. With the vampire overlord finally dispatched, the curse is lifted. Mina is saved from turning full on vampire. Jonathan finally stops whining, at least for now. And as the sun rises over Transylvania, Dracula's theme song fades out in the background like a bad reality show. And that's Dracula in a nutshell. A gothic tale of terror, terrorized humans, and one very persistent bloodsucker. Of course, this is all comes with the usual Victorian moral wrap-up. Good triumph over evil, but everyone should probably pray a little harder next time. So, if you're into creepy castles, neck bites, and Victorian melodrama, then Dracula has you covered. Now be nice and hit that subscribe button down there. Yeah, that little mini button, and drop a nice like and comment. Are you in the side of Dracula or the boring humans? See you next Friday. And with that, the lights goes off.